You're joining the conversation with Shortlisted, a podcast from the Greater Midwest Chapter, or GMC, of the Association of Proposal Management Professionals, where we chat about proposals, the business of winning work, and nailing the shortlists in our lives. I'm your host, Paul Lockwood, Senior Sales Operations Analyst for Vitality Group in Chicago.
And I'm co-host Heather Finch, joining you from my home office in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where I lead a proposal and presentation solution team for Guardian Life.
This month, we're having a chat with Sonali Oberg, Lindsay Lange, and Kaitlin Kousaie. Hi, Sonali, Lindsay, and Kaitlin. Why don't you introduce yourselves in that order? Sonali.
Thanks, Paul. My name is Sonali Oberg. I am a business development manager at Sidley Austin law firm. Previously, my role was senior proposals manager at the firm. So it's very exciting that I've had multiple roles as a stakeholder in front of and on the back end of proposals. And I am in wonderful Chicago.
My name is Lindsay Lange. I am a proposal manager for a local manufacturer of election technology, and we're based in Omaha, Nebraska, but I live in Lincoln, and I have been doing this for 7 years.
Hi, I'm Kaitlin Kousaie, and I have been in the proposal industry for 10 years. I am also a proposal manager at a local manufacturer of election technology, and I'm coming to you from Omaha, Nebraska.
Okay, so we've got Nebraska, Wisconsin, Illinois. Hopefully we don't Illinois on today. Moving right along. Sonali participated in our Greater Midwest Chapter Certification Study Group last year, which is co-chaired by both Lindsay and Kaitlin. Sonali passed her foundation level exam, but she hasn't yet been able to crack that practitioner exam, the next level. So Sonali, why don't we start with you? If you could talk a little bit about your experience in the study group, what was it like? Was it helpful? Would you recommend it to other people?
Thanks, Paul. Absolutely. So even a little bit of history with the foundation study group exam. That was 2 years ago that I joined Kaitlin and Lindsay in their study group, and it was fantastic. I learned a lot of tips and tricks and felt really comfortable going into the exam. Lindsay and Kaitlin took about a couple weeks out of the summer to really focus and bring together the team, have us study, have us look at the BOK, have us look at the foundation materials, and I felt very confident going into my exam for the foundation certification. So I was thrilled with the opportunity a year later to join their study group again. Not as thrilled with the format of the practitioner exam. And I think that's kind of where my big pitfall kind of started, and perhaps my mental lapse, for lack of a better word, may have started was I was a little surprised at how different the practitioner exam was from how we had studied and how we kind of collaborated and worked as a study group on the foundation exam. So I think that was something that I probably should have prepared a little bit better before I jumped into the study group with how is this exam set up? What is the format? Perhaps talked to a couple of other people about what their experience was with the practitioner's exam, just so I had a better idea. I also think that we were kind of potentially in a little odd pocket, so to speak, and the odd pocket wasn't COVID, believe it or not. I cannot blame COVID for this. The odd pocket was that the practitioner exam changed. So it had been a certain way, and so many of our colleagues that had passed the practitioner exam didn't really have a lot of experience to kind of share because APMP has switched the format. So I think that, Lindsay and Kaitlin were fantastic as study group moderators and leaders, but I think it's often difficult to kind of be able to breach the unknown. And I like to get a lot of evidence and a lot of materials. I like to pull all of that together, and I love my little notebooks and my little sticky pads of notes. And I had a lot harder of a time studying that way for this exam because the exam is not set up that way. So what I would hope in the future I'm able to do is to join the study group again, because now I feel like I've prepared myself for what the study group will be like. And something that I liked from both study groups, but particularly from the practitioner, and Kaitlin, Lindsay, I'll let you jump in here, was the practical nature of how you went about having us study for the test. It was less about the knowledge that we learned and we were so focused on for the foundation exam, but this was about the practical ways in which a proposal manager uses certain ways, certain tips, certain processes that you're taught from APMP. Do you guys agree?
Yeah, I definitely do agree. I think it's a big jump from foundation, which I believe is just there to test you about your knowledge about the best practices, and then practitioner is to test your knowledge of how to apply those practices to real life scenarios. And it goes towards the practitioner exam has a scenario, and then you have to answer a bunch of questions based on that scenario, as opposed to the foundation, which is just multiple choice.
There's also a lot in the administration of how to take it effectively because of the browser that you have to use. And you wouldn't think like, oh, it's just about the APMP. It's like, no, it's also about technology and your computer and how to conquer your computer to take the exam. And so is all thrown at you when you try to jump in with this proctored situation, and maybe the technology doesn't work, but you're supposed to be calm, but your computer's not working. And so we were trying to teach people like it might happen this way and you need to prepare that way. So remember everything you memorize, but also bring your IT mind that day.
Right, and we also kind of wanted to get our participants thinking of different ways to answer questions, because for foundation, you're answering multiple choice. But for practitioner, there's, I think, four different ways to answer the requirements. So the questions, so there's multiple choice, and then there's, you have to pick two choices, and then there's matching. So we tried to kind of format our study group to fit all of those different types of questions that you're answering.
So I'm curious just about the experience of, running the study group and helping people through this. So one of the things that I didn't know until I joined the board as the Gives Back chair is that there are fewer guidebooks and rules and more creation and development when we're creating these kinds of programs for our members. So can you tell me a little bit about how that process works behind the scenes?
We thought about it, and Kaitlin and I met and talked about what we thought would work best and what would make sense logically, especially for the foundation. Tried to structure it in a way you would go through an RFP and think of it that way. But with the practitioner, with each class that we've done in the study group, we poll everybody at the end and ask for suggestions, and then try to write materials based on what people need rather than just assuming that we know. So we've become teachers in a way. I'll let Kaitlin speak more about it. She has a lot of great ideas about all the things. We could do this, we could do that.
Well, for foundation, we actually created our own study guide where we put together all of our notes that we took when we were taking the foundation exam ourselves. And then we also created sample questions, and we also put in like our tips and tricks that we learned while we were taking the exam.
that was one of the most invaluable parts of the study group is you're getting the benefit of Kaitlin and Lindsay's experience. And it's really fantastic because some of the experiences are not positive. I mean, especially with the technology and having a proctor, and my proctor was sick. So he kept sneezing, and it was so like, what is happening? Like, who's sneezing? Like, what is like, wait, I'm trying to figure this out. And I'm trying to like, it's like, wait. And it was one of those things where, I was thinking about Kaitlin saying something about, you've got to just, or maybe it was Lindsay, it's like, okay, focus on your whiteboard, focus on this, make sure you've got your time management. And it was like, okay, let me have a Zen moment. Let me go back to, what my study group leader said. But as Lindsay said, you're putting on all these multiple hats. And I appreciated from them, knowing that there would be a level of agita, a level of, a little bit like heightened mental stress, because I definitely would have never finished the exam, I think, had I not had their study group. At least with the study group, I pushed through and I tried to finish. I did run out of time, Kaitlin. So we all know Sonali has time management issues, and that was definitely a big one for me. I tried very hard to finish, and it was one of those things where I'm like, wait, just one more second, because I don't think this is right. But having the benefit of having a study group lead that has done the work too, I think is so helpful to those of us going in, because it's not about their experience 5 years ago, 10 years ago. I mean, they've done it so recently that they're literally giving you real time. This is how you're going to feel. This is how it is. This is how it works. And I think that makes the study group very meaningful to those of us that are going into the breach.
Oh, the proctor sneezing, you had a lot to chew on. And you would think that with that book of knowledge, if you just really study the book of knowledge, you'd be okay. Apparently not. So logistically, how many people are actually in the study group at any one time?
Depends on who signs up. We have a maximum. What is it? Is it 10 for the foundation and 6 for practitioner, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you have actual meetings of the whole group, or do you meet individually with people? How does that work?
Yeah, we have group. So for the foundation, we have, I think, about 6 sessions where we cover, a certain amount of chapters each session. So we all meet as a group for all 6 of those sessions. And then we have the same for a practitioner, just I think 4 sessions, and we all meet as a group. And then they self-study on their own in between.
And we don't meet every week. It's usually every other to give time. At least every other to give them time to catch up, because they also have their lives and jobs to consider meanwhile.
So there's work, there's home, and there's homework.
That's right.
Why do you guys think certification is really important for our profession?
I feel as though we are subject matter experts, but the growth in your industry or your expertise never ends. So my joining GMC was very useful. The webinars, the different programs that we have, BPC, always helpful. But having the certification means that you're an expert, you've studied, you've gone through the trials and tribulations of like putting yourself out there. I think that the reason why I wanted to do the practitioner was you hear about how difficult it is, but you also feel like the name itself kind of bestows upon you this expertise that perhaps you might not get after your 10, 15 years of experience. So I thought it was important through my career trajectory, regardless of whether I have proposal manager in my title I work on proposals. So I want to continue learning and being a meaningful resource and an active member of the chapter.
It brings legitimacy to what we do, and we have reasons for why we do what we do, and we're not just deadline people, but we have actual practices that we're trying to follow for the betterment of the process and the industry and the company. So it makes me feel like we can say, no, this actually works, and I have studied it and I've seen it, and other people, thousands of other people, have come to the same conclusion. So please believe me when I say, like, we should do it this way.
Yeah, I agree with both Lindsay and Sonali. I think it gives legitimacy, and it proves that you're an expert in your field. Also, it's not an easy feat. So I think it shows that you're willing to, put in the time, effort, and dedication to, grow and test your knowledge and, have professional growth.
Of course, when you have a sick proctor, not only do you have legitimacy, but you have the ill legitimacy. It's really kind of sad, actually. So we're going to move along to our second segment here. The best thing that happened to you this month. This is our fun little segment where anything that you think was very positive that happened to you, both whether it's in work related or non-work related. I will go ahead and start us off just to give you an idea. Best thing that happened to me this month was that I successfully nominated the publisher of our community's weekly newspaper to be one of this year's Women of Distinction for our county. I write a monthly column for that newspaper, which is celebrating its 35th anniversary this year. The publisher has received other recognition in the past, but not this particular honor. Her husband had steered me to a number of people who've worked with her, either on a volunteer or professional basis. And as a result, I had many testimonials I was able to use in the nomination. And there is a celebratory luncheon later this month for all the winners. I get to be a guest of the publisher. I'm really grateful to this newspaper because it gives me the chance to craft a column that can be funny one month, serious the next, deal with anything I want to write about, whether it's the Muppet Show or participating in a spelling bee for older adults or the need for common sense gun control. And that flexibility is why the column is titled Amusing. Sometimes it is amusing and sometimes it's amusing. And just to make it clear, the publisher is a woman of distinction, not extinction. She's not a dinosaur, although I understand they're alive now in theaters again. Of course, if my publisher's name was Sarah, I could have nominated her with a similar statement, Triceratops tops, or just Triceratops. But her name is not Sarah. So anyhow, that is what was the best thing that happened to me this month. Heather, why don't you go next?
Absolutely. So mine is kind of a trifecta of really awesome things that happened all in the same event. So I got to go to BPC and be surrounded by my proposal peeps. It was so energizing and wonderful to be down there with everybody and get to see some familiar faces, get to see some familiar faces that I've only seen on screen in 3D. So that was fantastic. We've also got some footage that we're going to be sharing pretty soon from folks that we put in the hot seat while we were down there. Just a little teaser for the next podcast. But the other parts of the trifecta were I got to attend an inclusion and diversity panel that was really amazing, talking about some of the things that are top of mind for folks in our industry when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion, as well as be in the room when the idea for a new affinity group was born. So our very own Tori Bunk asked a question about mental health in the profession, and that spurred the creation of a new APMP affinity group about mental health that we should be seeing here soon. So really, really exciting stuff. Sonali, what's one thing that happened to you this month that's worth celebrating?
So I have actually a similar story, Heather. So I love your story about D&I. My story about D&I is since I became a proposal manager, 8 years ago, I work in the legal sector where we have special D&I certifications that our law firms can go for and obtain. And many of our clients are driving the importance of the certification, kind of like what we talked about. It's the legitimacy of the firm taking on D&I initiatives and then kind of living through them and having their partners really focus and move those forth down to the associate level. So after an 8-year journey of each of the firms I've worked at, to beg and plead and cajole to have them join the Mansfield certification, I am excited to say our firm will be working on the certification for 2023. So this is a very exciting and thrilling thing. It will be the first firm I've ever worked at in a 30-year career that is taking D&I this seriously. So I'm very proud of Sidley Austin. I do have a personal one that I would like to add in there. For those of you that live near Chicago, the Rainbow Cone is a historical ice cream joint that has expanded now close to my home in the western suburbs. So I am enjoying going to the original Rainbow Cone of Lombard every weekend with my family. We walk over and I get to watch my nieces and nephews and husband eat a rainbow cone like I did as a kid, as a young adult. So it's so wonderful to see generationally having grandma, aunties, and everybody eating rainbow cone as fast as they can in 90-degree heat as it melts away.
Yeah, without a cone, ice cream.
Yes, absolutely. I have to get the rainbow. I always ask them to go heavy on the chocolate and the strawberry side, but I do the rainbow in a waffle cone, 2 scoops. I would say the oddest flavor I have seen my nephew get is the mix of cake batter and cookie dough bites with sprinkles and gummy worms on top. Also in a waffle bowl. It's a sugar high for at least a weekend or two. So
When I go to the ice cream store, it's tough for me to make a decision. I'm always waffling.
I'm so excited. So, Sonali, do you live in Lombard?
I live in Elmhurst, so
Okay.
yeah.
I went to the Lombard Lilac Festival
I love it.
this year. It was so much fun. I have a friend that lives in Gary, Indiana, and it was like it was an equidistant. I wouldn't say a halfway point, but it was equidistant. And so we went to the Lilac Festival and then we went to the Morton Arboretum.
Oh, sure.
Oh my gosh. It was so amazing. If you haven't been recently, like they have these gorgeous statues up right now. And I guess they're adding some more from the same artist. It was just what a fantastic treasure that is.
Oh, I get Lilacia Park for the lilacs in
Yes.
May, and then the Christmas, their Christmas festivities, the Christmas lights are remarkably wonderful. So here I'm going to plug Lombard, Illinois, and certainly you can enjoy rainbow cone. Take a piece of rainbow cake with you. If you don't eat ice cream, they have lots of things to entice everyone's sweet tooth. But yeah, it's a wonderful little hidden treasure.
Lindsay, what was your best thing?
It means a lot to me. It may not mean anything to anybody else, but my favorite grapes are back for a limited time only. They are called Candy Snaps, and they are strawberry flavored grapes. And I can only find them for a few weeks or months in a year. And so whenever I see them, I check. You have to check like inside the lid. You can't see it from the outside, so I have to unsuspiciously, don't be suspicious, make sure that it says Candy Snaps Strawberry on the inside of the lid. and then put them in the cart. But they make me so happy and they taste so wonderful. However, they've ruined regular grapes for the rest of time for me because I think they taste so awesome and I'm just so disappointed with the other grapes. I'm easily amused, but it brings me so much joy when it's candy snap season, strawberry flavored grapes. So that's my
So
take.
ironically, without those grapes, you whine.
Yes, I whine. I do each time.
Is it in a special grocery store, Lindsay? Because now I'm very curious. I need to go to the store immediately.
I've only seen them at Sam's Club. I don't
Oh.
have Costco anymore, so I haven't looked at Costco, but I've looked at Hy-Vee, which is local here, and I've looked at all the other grocery stores, but I've only found them in Sam's Club.
Good to know. I
Yeah.
will go investigate.
Perfect.
Kaitlin?
I am going to say the bid and proposal con as well. It was a very exciting and good conference, and I was very excited that Lindsay went as well. We were able to meet in person a few members of our past study groups, so that was really fun. And then also, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say that was awesome. I love that too.
Yeah. And then on a personal note, we had a family wedding recently, and it seems like the first time in a long time that we've been able to get together in a bigger group, and I got to see all my brothers and sisters that live out of town and my nieces and nephews, so that was very enjoyable.
When it comes to going to weddings, do I like it? I do.
All right, well, we will move on to Dear GMC, the next segment of our podcast. Dear GMC is your opportunity to submit questions to proposal professionals and get answers. If you go to our website, you can fill out a form and select whether you'd like your question to be answered on our blog or on Shortlisted. So, Dear GMC, I'm depressed. Maybe not clinically, but I'm definitely underwhelmed and uninspired by my work. I'm burned out, overloaded, and feel like I'm operating on autopilot. I really don't care about the proposals I'm working on, and once I tackled each one with gusto and new ideas, now I just try to get them done as quickly as possible. Silly things are slipping through the cracks, and I feel like people are starting to notice. I know I need a change of scenery or mindset, but I can't afford a vacation and don't really want a job hunt right now. I'm not even convinced those things would solve how I'm feeling. What do you suggest? Sincerely, Despondent. So I'm going to kick us off with just a little bit of an idea before we move on to our guests and get your ideas. And the first thing that I just want to mention is maybe you are depressed, and that's okay. And it's okay to ask for help. If you are feeling overwhelmed and if you're feeling like it's hard to get through the days, reach out, get help. If you feel like, things are getting to be too much, don't forget about the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. The number is 1-800-273-8255. Again, that number is 1-800-273-8255. But if this is really more just focused on your work and feeling a bit burned out, let's ask for some advice from our guests. Lindsay, do you want to start us off?
Sure. I believe I actually wrote about this for the GMC recently, how to deal with burnout. I don't know if that was a planned event or not, but I had some tips in there, and I try to find a spark from doing something differently or a little bit out of order. Or I've also found a lot of productivity comes from taking a walk outside. Not now, it's 100 degrees here at least. But I often get some of my best ideas if I get up and walk away from my desk for 5, 10, 15 minutes, because my mind just stops directly focusing on something and then it kind of figures it out in the background. And by the time I get back, I have a better idea. But I've also, when I've struggled, told folks on my team, hey, I'm not doing very well right now. I'm worried I might miss something. I need you to help me, which can be kind of vulnerable, but it also opens up collaboration and partnership. It doesn't work if you're a one-person team necessarily, but stepping away and stepping back and asking for help is definitely a suggestion I have.
Thanks, Lindsay. Those are some great recommendations. Sonali, what are your thoughts?
You know, I was actually in this position last summer. I was really struggling. We had a lot of big multi-practice proposals that were just coming in, and I felt like I was in the time to make the donuts kind of mentality rather than appreciating my work. And one thing I did was I talked to somebody who doesn't work in BD or proposals. And she's a wonderful colleague here at the firm. And I was telling her, I said, you know, I can't get out of this. I'm just kind of doing the motions. I'm trying to run through things. I'm trying to hit deadlines. I'm not really taking any pride in my work. And she asked me, she said, well, why did you go into proposals in the first place? It's not as though you go to college, you graduate from college, and you say, I am going to be a proposal writer. So what was the journey that led you here? And what was the journey that, you know, had you work for 10 years? And when I started thinking about the journey, what I realized that made the proposal work so valuable to me was the collaboration. So similar to what Lindsay said, I went to one of my junior team members and I said, I think it's time that you think about what you want to see in your career. I think it's time I start mentoring you because maybe it's time for you to become a manager or think about being a manager. So let's walk through this really painful panel, really difficult panel together. And I felt very energized seeing her enthusiasm and seeing her interest in doing the project, not from her perspective, but thinking about it from the manager's perspective and running a couple of meetings with our stakeholders. And it really made me feel better about, you know, here I am giving someone an opportunity. And it reminded me why I enjoy the work. And, you know, it reminded me that I could be creative in what I was doing and that I was just looking at the difficulty of the work rather than bringing those pieces together and watching her really blossom and really enjoy taking hold. It made me feel better about me as a manager and a leader, that if I could encourage her to feel this strong and excited about the work, then I could too. And that was one of the great values of leaning on your team members and really getting the joy out of the joy that they had towards the project. And of course, the great joy was 6 months later, because God forbid we find out quickly about these things. We won the work and actually have gotten more work out of the proposal that we didn't even bid on. So that always helps. I just want that instant gratification, not that delayed gratification sometimes.
That's fantastic. Kaitlin, anything to add for Dee?
Yeah, I will just say that one thing that really works for me, because I know it's so easy to get lost in your bid work and just put your head down and just keep working. And then, you know, before you know it, it's 5 p.m. and, you know, you haven't taken a break at all. So one thing that works for me is just taking little breaks throughout the day, maybe 10 to 15 minutes, and just to recharge, go on a short walk, you know, talk to a friend, just something where you can just get your mind out of your bid work and just recharge so that you have more energy going into the rest of the day.
Fantastic. And Paul, how about you?
Everything else that everybody else said. I think sometimes we do tend to look at things through those business development or those BD eyes. And I think we need to kind of avoid the beady eyes sometimes. And so how you do that is up to you. But I would try to think about, you know, that work-life balance stuff. Is your work occupying you so many hours every day that you really don't have a life? if that's the case, you're going to burn out really, really quick. So try to see if there's something that you can spend a little time on, even if it's just once a week, that you can really look forward to, that's outside of the office. So if that's, that you go see a play every week, or you go out with friends for dinner once a week, or that you set aside some time you're going to read your favorite kind of novel or nonfiction, whatever. Make sure that you're setting aside that time for yourself, that you're doing things that you really, truly enjoy. That may make it a little less difficult to deal with the day-to-day work-related stuff that you're having to address.
I think we have such a great collection of ideas and wonderfully diverse perspectives on this. Definitely the unifying thing throughout this is I think we've all felt how Dee is feeling. And knowing that you can make it through. Sometimes a big change can help, but it's not the only way. Sometimes it's the small changes too. Paul, you really emphasized the work-life balance. Another way that you can look for ways to achieve that is to see if your company has an EAP. This is typically a free program. Sometimes there are different resources. Oftentimes there are therapy sessions that you can attend. And even if it's just a couple to help give you some support and some ideas while you're feeling this way, I think it can be hard once you get into that burned out, blah, feeling just like nothing is really all that exciting. It can be really hard to work your way out of that. And even having this panel of like really like people that are very empathetic and can understand where you're coming from, but it still is like, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this, right? And that can feel really overwhelming in the moment when you're already kind of in a low spot. And so finding that kind of, a therapist or that kind of resource to just talk to and express your feelings to and get some ideas of how to help dig yourself out of that hole can be really, really helpful. And sometimes too, just, you mentioned that you think you could use a change of scenery or a change of mindset. Maybe a big vacation is not in the cards right now. Maybe a new job isn't in the cards right now, but maybe it's just one little thing. Maybe like one little, like a new thing that you haven't done yet, or a little day trip, just a little mini adventure. Try something new, go be around different people. Maybe that's even just a little bit something new in your job, like getting involved in your local chapter, writing a blog post to just kind of mix things up a little bit, or getting involved in the board, or Sonali mentioned mentoring. That can be really energizing both ways. So there are ways to get out of this place. And it takes work, and that's hard, but really everything that you can do to give yourself just a little bit more energy in the day will make things better. So Dee, I hope that you can get yourself out of this place, and into a place where you're back to working with that gusto and feeling that energy from your work.
Okay, well, we hope you've enjoyed this episode of Shortlisted and that you'll join us next month.
And just a quick disclaimer and reminder, the advice offered in this podcast is intended for informational and entertainment purposes only. Use of this podcast is not intended to replace or substitute any financial, medical, legal, or other professional advice. This podcast, its hosts, and APMP GMC are not responsible for the outcome or results following any advice in any given situation. You and only you are completely responsible for your actions.
Thanks, Heather. If you're dealing with stakeholders, go to Outback. You'll be a stakeholder yourself. And on your final list of podcast favorites, we'd love to hear from you. Email our producer, Katie Stutzman, at kstutsman@gmcapmp.org. To all those winning business out there, on behalf of me, Heather, our special guests, Sonali, Lindsay, and Kaitlin, and all of us in the Greater Midwest chapter, we'll GM see you next time on Shortlisted.